Hi, my name is Matt Day. I'm a consulting systems engineer in the UK data center team. This video is going to show how you can easily build a 3-tier application with UCS Director and ACI. All the code and examples are available on GitHub with the URL shown. In addition, there's a full guide on how you can go and implement this in your own data center or your lab. So what is a 3-tier application? Well, it's a traditional web server. We have, as the name implies, 3 tiers. First of all, the web tier in the center there. This is typically something that's running Apache or Microsoft Information Services. We have an application tier, which provides our application programming environment, maybe something like Apache Tomcat. And finally, the database tier, such as Oracle, MySQL, and so on. Now clearly there's other pieces to making a web application. We have external load balancers, or maybe even virtual ones. We have firewalls. We've got all sorts of contracts or security rules between them, access control lists, that kind of thing. Networking configuration, storage provisioning, virtual machines, and bare metal. This, in many organizations, can take weeks if not months to deploy. Typically it's very inconsistent in terms of the way that the security and policy is applied, and it's very slow to change. What I'm going to demonstrate today is how a pre-built script in UCS Director, one that you can download yourself and try, can automatically provide all of this infrastructure within minutes aligned to your IT security policy. So here's what the user would see. They'll log into a portal where they're able to go in straight away and request the 3-tier application as discussed earlier. I have a few input fields to do. The first is to give it a name, so I'm going to say Matt Day's demo app. I can choose how many VMs per tier I want, in this case 1 per tier, and go next. Check a summary of what's going to happen here. It's going to create me my 3-tier app, and I'll just submit that request away. So what's going to happen at this stage is UCS Director is going to work through the following workflow. We're going to start off in ACI by creating our application profiles, almost like a container that has everything about our application within it. We're then going to go through and configure our layer 4 to 7 services. We're going to say, okay, add these contracts, configure these ASA rules, and we're going to go and then create the individual components. The first piece is the app endpoint groups, or EPGs. These define almost like a VLAN. They'll say this is a group of web servers, this is a group of application servers, and hey, over here is a group of database servers. We're going to create the virtual machines in VMware vCenter, and we can have, as you saw earlier, multiple VMs. It really doesn't matter. And then what we're going to finally do is we're going to link it all together. So we're going to say, okay, here is what a web server is allowed to consume and provide. Here's what an application server is able to consume and provide. And here's what a database server is allowed to consume and provide. By doing it this way, we explicitly allow traffic between them. So we can say, for example, a web server is only allowed to receive traffic on port 80 and port 443, HTTP and HTTPS respectively. That traffic must be firewalled through an ASA. We'll do something called service chaining there, or service graphs, and that traffic must also be load balanced. Now the great thing about this is that is policy that's defined by our application managers, by our security managers. It's IT policy. And so as an end user, I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to go and request that. It's automatically handled through the APIs. Once this flowchart is done, my application is going to be available for me to work as I wish. Okay, so we've kicked off that task now, and you can see the service request status shows a very similar flow to the flowchart we just had. So let's have a look at APIC now, and you can see that it's created an application profile called Matt Day's demo app, and within it we've already got the app and web endpoint groups created. Database is just about to pop in, and we should see the contracts as well now. This is all automatically done according to our policy. Let me just rearrange this a little bit to make it clearer, but you can see that we have the interactions exactly as defined between our web, app and database tiers, as well as the contracts defining them. So let's check in on UCS Director and see how we're getting on with our workflow. We can see something very similar to the flowchart earlier, and UCS Director is iterating through the tasks. As you can see, the APIC elements are complete. We've built our EPGs, we've created the contracts between them. Now we need to build the VMware VMs. So let's log into vSphere and see how that's getting on. Okay, so logging into VMware then, I can see I've got a bunch of virtual machines, but critically my web app is being deployed, or in fact has been deployed now. So if we drill into that, we can see that the network adapter has been automatically assigned to my web endpoint group. And if we look at APIC, the contract provided by that EPG, that endpoint group, provides exactly as we described earlier. So I'm allowing ping for debug reasons. I can remove that once I go into production. I'm allowing HTTP, port 80, and HTTPS, port 443, and then I have a firewall policy on there as well to do my stateful firewalling going through an ASAV appliance. So let's check back into UCS Director and see how we're getting on with the other VMs. You can see now we're creating the application tier virtual machines, and this could be again any number that I wish. In our case, I'm just showing the one as a proof of concept example. As with many other steps in this demonstration, I'm going to speed this up a little bit so we can see the rest of the 3-tier application coming into life. Okay, so we're done. Everything's built, so let's have a look in VMware and just make sure that those VMs are as we expect. So let's filter out my application here. So you can see I've got 3 tiers of app, my app, database and web tiers. Let's have a look at the database. That was the last one created. So if we go in, we can see again it's been put into the correct endpoint group here, the database group, which again reflects within ACI where it needs to be. We have the contract set up, we have all the service parameters. Not only does this toolkit allow me to provision a 3-tier application fully within our IT policies, our security policies, in an incredibly small amount of time, it also allows me to roll it back. And this means that I can completely remove everything that I've just created in an automated fashion. This can be done based on policy. For example, if a virtual machine has been idle too long, or if we see some kind of event happen, or I can go in and request it myself. I can simply say, I'm done with this, thank you very much, get rid of it. And I'm going to show the latter part now. So here I go, I'm going to click rollback request, and what you can see is you can see a list of everything that this task has done. And I can choose what I want to roll back, so I don't have to remove everything. So let's say I wanted to only remove the database tier. Well, I can go in, I can simply uncheck everything else except for the endpoint groups, the contracts that the database tier did, as well as the virtual machines that I created. And UCS Director will go and remove all of that from my data center. But in this case, I'm just going to remove everything, so let's kick that process off. So much like when we create a task, we get the exact same workflow here, so we can see exactly what's going on along each step of the way. But let's quickly dive into VMware before those things disappear, and let's have a search for all of my applications. Now VMware sadly doesn't update live, so I'm having to keep refreshing the GUI here, but you can see that the VMs have gone. They've disappeared. And likewise, if we go into APIC now, we'll see pretty much in real time all of my contracts, my EPGs, my endpoint groups, they're going to disappear from the left here. It's all going to happen in one big go, and my application is no more. There is no trace of it. It doesn't exist on the network. All of the policy on my firewalls have gone, and all of the virtual machines that was holding it together, they've disappeared too. So, summarizing this, we have, based on all of our IT policy, created a very complex workflow that could typically take an organization days. Looking at this flowchart again, we can see that we've gone through and created all of the networking, all of the security, immediately deployed our virtual machines and the interactions between them without having to go to the teams each time we need to do it. Instead, we simply do the work up front, we define our policy and make sure that things are exactly as we want, and then we're able to repeat that using the automation tools and even provide a self-service catalog for our users. Application-centric infrastructure helps by allowing us to very, very closely define the relationships and couplings and contracts within our applications, automate things like service chaining, so we can push traffic into a load balancer, into a firewall, without having to go off and do all of the network configuration. This means that when I remove a service or add a service into ACI, it's simply that. It's the things I care about for my application to work. As we move to a more agile environment and we're able to deploy these things within policy, ACI and UCS Director coupled will give us a rapid way of deploying this 3-tier or any other application within 30 minutes in this case. It gives me the capabilities to visually see this and manage it, and hopefully it's something that you can pick up straight away from the source code and the examples that we've included and start considering for your own environment. Thank you very much.